The red herring, like the non sequitur, is a fallacy that comes in many specific forms. The term is used for cases where no other name applies. Unlike the non sequitur, the red herring is an informal fallacy. In fact, an argument containing a red herring can be sound as it is presented. What makes it a red herring isn't necessarily that it's wrong, but that it's irrelevant. It's an informal fallacy because it proves A, perhaps successfully, but it's used as an argument for B, and the premise "if A, then B" is missing and false. Let's have a look at some examples from Winston Wu. When addressing the claim that it's irrational to believe things that have not been shown to be true, he said, quote, "Many research experiments and studies conducted under the scientific method have passed with positive results." Unquote. So, the topic is whether it's rational to believe things that have not passed with positive results. When arguing against the claim that unexplained does not mean inexplicable and therefore, I would assume, paranormal, he said, quote, "Just because something happens that they think isn't possible doesn't mean that it didn't happen. To do so would be to deny reality. For one, no one said that if something is unexplained, it's impossible and didn't happen, so this could be interpreted as a straw man, a fallacy that is closely related, but I'll address that another time. For another, it's a red herring because Wu addresses the issue of what's possible, when what he should be addressing is what's possible to explain without appealing to the paranormal. Let me clarify. You can't say it's paranormal just because it can't be explained at this time. Maybe a perfectly natural explanation will be found tomorrow. Your narrow worldview doesn't define what's possible? Correct, but how is this relevant? And then of course there's the classic that always comes up when someone's arguing against the theory of evolution. Quote, "Science cannot explain how life began at all or how the first cell became self-replicating." Unquote. So, let's accept this as true for the sake of argument. It's true that evolution can't explain these things, and it's also true that the scientific explanations offered are not nearly as well supported as the theory of evolution. But let's get to the real issue here. This is used as an argument against the theory of evolution. Evolution deals with how life changes over time, not how it began. The fact that a theory can't answer a question that lies beyond its scope is not a valid objection to it. Furthermore, Wu is basically saying that science is not reliable where it has been shown to be very reliable, because it's not as reliable where it hasn't. The case for A is not affected by flaws in the case for B. What matters is the strength of the evidence for A. We're not talking about B. That's the red herring. Let me clarify. Your Honor, the mountain of evidence against my client must be regarded as insufficient because the prosecutor has lost cases in the past due to lack of evidence. So what? While a red herring can be used by accident due to some misunderstanding about what's relevant to the subject being discussed, it's often used as a rhetorical trick, a dishonest strategy to distract from the fact that you can't argue against the point your opponent brought up. The goal is to switch from a topic where you can't win to one where you can. If the audience doesn't recognize the red herring for what it is, you can walk away the perceived winner of the debate without actually having addressed the topic. The name red herring comes from the use of literal smoked herring, which is really smelly, as a distraction for animals. The common belief is that it can be used to distract hounds and make them lose their trail, something that, as it turns out, isn't very effective. It can, however, be used when training animals to keep focused. You'll notice that red herrings are very common in politics, where politicians avoid questions by talking about how terrible the opposition is. This is often done to avoid saying things that could be used against them. For example, how will you improve the state of education without raising taxes? Education is in the horrible state it's in because of cutbacks made by them. That's their answer for everything. Take money away from education and healthcare to spend on less important things. A vote for them is a vote against the best interests of the nation. Education is important. Vote for us. Thank you. Next question. Instead of taking the opportunity to present an argument for their own policies, they've presented a very weak argument against the opposition's. The question has not been answered, probably because the real, honest answer is, we can't. Unfortunately, by not answering the question, the message received by the audience ends up being, we can't, And also, we're dishonest. Until next time, stay logical.